My name is Rosemary Briscoe. I'm president of To the Web. And today I'm going to share data that's from live websites about what's going on with search. So we're not going to be talking about Gartner predicting the 25% reduction in organic search or the SEO bloodbath. I'm really going to show you the drop is happening right now. So Safari users are already defecting to AI platforms. And for the first time ever, Apple has confirmed that traffic has dropped in their platform, in their browser. And this came out of the DOJ hearings, so we know that this is accurate. And also, for the first time in 10 years, Google's share has slipped below 90%. And in an internal document that they posted to their employees back last year, they already predicted that ChatGPT and Gemini, or ChatGPT traffic, was going to cut into their traffic. And this is research that was based on 10,000 keywords. And what it's showing is that AI overviews, when they appear, reduce organic and paid clicks. And as soon as they're removed, that rebounds. And I'm going to show you some great data on that. So we have already made the shift from traditional search to AI answers. And people aren't clicking on blue links because they're so far down the page now. And they're being replaced with AI answers at the top. So you can basically forget things like the traditional things we did with using a lot of keywords. We have to stop using jargon because LLMs don't care. And what we really have to do to show up for AI search is to answer real questions. We have to format our content for AI, and we have to shape how AI describes you. And when Mike starts talking later in this presentation, he's going to show you that we know what's happening in the LLMs. So the goal here is that people want answers, not links. And, we used to market to search engines back in the day. Now we have to market to LLMs in the same way. And the ChatGPT, just as Paul said, there's massive growth. It is now the 5th most visited site in the world. And that's just amazing traffic. It's only behind Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Wikipedia. So it's in 2.5 years, it's really come a long way. And this is really high value traffic too, because people stay on the page, on your site longer, they visit more pages. My data is showing that the bounce rate is about the same for organic as it is for LLMs. Whoops, sorry about that. And now I'm going to have Alden just say a few words about this slide, about how AI search converts on his site.
Yeah, thanks, Rosemary. So what we did is we took a look at how traffic coming in from Google Organic compares to traffic coming in from ChatGPT, right? But not from a traffic perspective, because who cares for traffic? What people care for is sales, right? You want actual money, you want actual conversions, you want leads. Those are the things that marketers and companies cares about. And what we found was that the the traffic that came from ChatGPT converted almost 8 times higher than the one that comes from Google, right? And if you think about it, it makes intuitive sense because the user is pretty much pre-cooked and pre-approved as such, where he has got all the information. So he doesn't have to come to your website and goof around. He can just straight away go and check out. So because of these factors, we are seeing like 8 times as much conversions. And because I think we are pretty lucky to get a lot of traffic from ChatGPT, I think about a week ago, we are now getting as many sales from ChatGPT as we are getting from Google Organic. And to me, that is an absolutely fascinating thing. I thought that this parity would happen about 12 months from now, and it's happened like right here in May of 2025. So that was quite shocking.
Yes, it's happening very, very fast. And then, of course, Google doesn't want you to click away from the site. And it's prioritizing AI overviews over traditional search results. And that's just having a major shift in visibility for company websites. But here's one of the real gotchas here. Google doesn't separate out AI overview clicks from regular ones. So in our
Oh.
analytics programs, we can't tell if a click came from AI overviews or came from a blue link. But even worse than that is that all links in AI overviews are grouped into one position in Google Search Console. So unless a user expands the section, the AI overview section, to see your link, it doesn't even count as an impression. So you might have got into an AI overview, but because it wasn't visible, it's not counted in any way. All right, so I think this next section is like the real most important thing to take away. So this actually happens to be my website. I get a lot of traffic. This is based on 17 million impressions and 647,000 clicks over the last 16 months. So this looks really great. You know, traffic impressions are moving along, and then bang, they start going up. So just keep in mind that Google officially launched AI overviews back in the US in May of last year. So here we're seeing a 122% increase January over May, year over year. So you would expect that that would result in a lot more click activity, but it only resulted in 10% increase in clicks. And I used to get generally well over 10% clicks anyway. So this isn't a very exciting story. And in March is when they really started to deliver more AI overviews. And you can see that right here. So that's not a nice trend to see. But the real story is that click-through rate is on a downward trend. So last year in Q1, click-through rate was 5.2%. But now this year, it's only 2.6. And I think that's about 50% decline. And this isn't just one site. This is another client, another data point. This is a public company. We're looking at 6 months of data, and we're seeing the same kind of trend. And if I look at all of these other websites, we are going to start seeing this drop in click-through rates. And I don't really know where it ends because, you know, this is really just this year when AI overviews started to take a big chunk of our traffic. So are there any questions? Because this is really what's happening with Google and our traffic. Paul, are there any questions?
Yeah, there's Lucinda's got a question. I've got a question as well. Go ahead, Lucinda, and then Christina.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've been trying to jibe is what you are saying and what Alden is saying. So is the difference that Alden's looking at sales and that works out for him while you're looking more at the digital marketing aspect of this? But how is
Exactly.
it that you're raising the alarm and Alden is happy?
So I'm looking at, yes, he's smiling with it. I'm looking at traffic. I'm looking at what has happened in this last year from impressions and clicks and click-through rate and positions in Google search, right? Google or Alden is looking at what happens once people come on his website from any source, but he's specifically called out. But did you look at just ChatGPT or all AI, Alden?
Just ChatGPT, but the others also are doing pretty good, like Perplexity.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
let me restate it, Mary, make sure I'm listening to it. So you're saying traditional approach with Google is seeing almost 50% cut in half in click-through rate, which was a key metric. And Alden's saying, I love traffic from ChatGPT. Send me all the traffic you can possibly get from those large language models. I love that. I love that pipeline of traffic. Is that right, Alden?
Yeah, totally. And Rosemary's points are mostly are definitely about Google, and those trends hold true. I would say I'm just lucky that I got this new, I don't know, girlfriend who's sending more traffic.
Yeah.
And Alden, I'm going to show you something in a minute that's going to make you happy also, because it's going to show you that, ChatGPT growth has just gone through the roof, right? And so this is good for Alden because he's measuring those conversions. I'm showing you the front end. He's showing you what happens when those people come to your website.
So
He's
is it basically that ChatGPT is squeezing out the marketer?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
We got 3 more questions. Go ahead, Christina, then Joyce.
I have a small clarification, Rosemary. You said that when you get the Google search LLM results at the top of the page, there are links associated with each of the statements that are made up there. Are you saying that unless someone clicks on one of those little links, the company whose link that is doesn't even know that they've seen it?
I'm saying that when that result is there, if someone clicks on a link there and comes to your site, in Google Analytics, you will not know if they came from AI overviews or from a blue link.
That's crazy.
So
Yes, well, sure. Do you think they're going to be motivated to change that?
No, but
I don't think so.
It's so strange because those links are to very specific pages. So you would think they would be the same link URL that you would be seeing in your Google Analytics.
Yep, nope.
Thank you for clarifying that. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding you.
Yes, I know. It was very hard to grasp that.
Thank
go
you.
ahead, Joyce, and then Rachel. Oh, did we lose Joyce? Joyce, if you
It's
come back.
gonna happen one time. Forgot to unmute. It's thank you so much for the data and the presentation. It's really engaging. I have one small comment and then one question. The comment is, if you listen to the latest earnings report by Google, they actually say they see similar monetization from AI overview versus their blue links, which I obviously highly skeptical, given what you say. The second thing is, the question is, because you're comparing the AI overview impact, and when I see AI overview, usually I use the typical Google search keywords, right? And then it just show me. Instead of when I go into an AI engine, I will shape my questions more, shape my search more like a question. So does that impact these type of things? Do you think go into these numbers? Because we are almost like Google is using the AI overview in the OL keyword, try to translate a keyword into an AI question.
Well, Joyce, that's a good question, but we really don't know because they're not separating out the data. So we have no idea where that click came from.
That's fair. Thank you. Thank you.
And Rachel?
Hi there. I was just wondering, and forgive me, I am in the process of building my website, so I have not seen GA4 since AI really became a thing. but my understanding, can you now see referral traffic from from LLMs and from specific LLMs? Because my understanding was that you couldn't, or it was a pretty heavy workaround because it was browserless and you needed to be using custom URLs.
You know,
Or
you can
has
see it
that
in
now
all.
changed?
I'm going to show you some examples. Yes, you can
Okay.
definitely track it, but there are some issues with tracking.
Right. Okay. I look forward to seeing it.
Rosemary, before I go there, can you just go back? I just have a clarification question here. So for non-marketing people like myself, the click-through rate is a user sees a banner and they click through it and then go to the site, correct?
Right, they see
So-
something, right, that's a click-through rate, yes.
So we're seeing 6 months of a declining click-through rate. Did the ad content itself stay the same for all 6 months, or did it change in the middle and it's poor quality? It seems like the content itself would have a big impact on the click-through rate as well.
These aren't ads. This is just normal results in Google search.
I see. Okay.
So this is
So-
what's happening when you go to Google search. And so I'm using this because Google search accounts for like 96% of organic traffic to B2B websites.
Thank you. Thank you. So said differently, this is a good apples to apples comparison on everything else is the same. It's like something's driving down the click-through rate, is your point.
Right. Yes, I'm just saying that this decline, we can tie it pretty much directly to AI overviews.
Okay. Michael, you got one last one here? Go ahead.
Yeah, I've got one last one. Basically, these are two different animals. Search is providing you where you can go to get the information, and ChatGPT and some of the models are saying, okay, this is the information. And so those are two different animals. We need to have a way that we gather this information and analyze it so that people see, okay, one of the things I would want to answer is, what's somebody looking for?
Okay, so what I'm showing you is right here was Google search.
Mhm.
That's separate from the traffic that comes to you from LLMs. So we'll cover some of that and then I'm going to turn it over to Mike.
Okay.
Okay, so AI is also having a big impact on paid search. So this data is coming from my colleague who runs large ad campaigns. And he said that we're already seeing a decline in click-through rates of between 30 and 50%. So it's already starting in paid as well. You've probably seen that sometimes Google is testing putting paid above AI overviews. We're also seeing an increase in the cost per click. However, Google is it's always costing more for clicks anyway. So what has happened though is Google is now taking over running the campaign. What you do now is you provide Google with URLs, the copy and your goals, and Google is doing the rest. So, you're losing control of your marketing and targeting. And so that means that your content that it's pulling from has to be really good. So ChatGPT, back to ChatGPT, Mike. So it is a top referrer. This is a public company. ChatGPT is already in the top 10 out of more than 3,000 sites. This site here was an acquisition of theirs, so really it's in 8th position. And this is the level of growth that they're seeing from ChatGPT. And Bing is powering ChatGPT search, and this is giving you a sense of the difference between Bing and Google. So as I've shown, Google traffic is shrinking, but Bing is growing here, as you can see here, but the numbers are so small. I never pay attention to Bing. I know, Alden, what you're thinking. Alden is a big fan of Bing, but I never see any growth there. The other thing that's going to impact this is that that should say No, that's right. Apple plans to embed AI search tools like Perplexity and Claude into Safari, so we're going to see even more change as well. All right, Paul, this is your site. And what I want to make a point of here is that we have an attribution problem with our LLMs and how they refer traffic. So generally, when a click comes from, say, Google search or ChatGPT, well, we won't use ChatGPT, or another site, it passes referred traffic that then appears in Google Analytics. And so when that happens, then our analytics are accurate. What's happening now is that AI referral traffic is not always being reported correctly, and a lot of traffic from LLMs is getting dumped into direct. With Paul's site, you can see how search traffic is growing at this almost the same rate as direct. So I'm very suspicious that he's getting LLM traffic from direct. Another point is that when you're looking at your traffic, pay attention to longer time periods, because short time periods like this, 90 days, everything looks great, we're celebrating, and then you look at it longer term and you see that this may have had seasonality, maybe some other kind of noise, your traffic really didn't go up. And this is another example of how the impact is not uniform across all the sites that I looked at. So this is a large company, enterprise company. Their traffic dropped 16%. This is my site. I use these two because they had the same amount of traffic this year, and mine only went up 2.5. And where did they go? So in this one site that I'm looking at here, the majority of traffic went to blogs. That's no surprise because blogs are long. You have a lot of blogs on your site. But the homepage isn't getting the traffic. And normally, the homepage gets the most traffic of any page on your site. And when I was doing this research, what I realized was we are forgetting that in software companies who have a document website, which is huge, which is all text-based, that if you aren't optimizing that for LLMs, you're missing a huge opportunity. So I have run out of time and I'm going to turn it over to Mike. Mike, do you want to take controls? And when Rachel, we'll save questions for the end if that's okay. So we give Mike his time.
Yeah, thanks, Rosemary. Let me share my screen here. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Mike Ensing, CEO of Revere. We've actually been partnering with Rosemary and several other agencies around basically helping marketers address this new space of basically LLMs representing brands to potential customers, current customers, and things like that. And it's been a really interesting journey. We provide an overall platform to help brands understand how they're represented by all the major LLMs. And then we also help optimize brand presence on LLMs in partnership with agencies like Rosemary's. One of the things that has been really interesting, and it's a little bit about what Alden saw, is that over the last 12 weeks, we've seen a massive uptick in basically interest in our solution and our services because people are starting to see organic traffic come from ChatGPT. And they're like, oh my gosh, my customers are on these platforms discovering about my brand. So I'm going to take you through just a couple of slides in terms of how we see this space. I was going to take you through a quick demo, but we can do that at a later date, just given time. But I'm also here to say to you, and you'll see this, that it's actually the LLM disruption of search is going to go way beyond that. And we're going to have agents soon that are actually going to execute tasks and actually do automated buying. And so the new challenge for marketers is massively complex. Just a little bit about the company. We were founded about 2 years ago. Actually, when sorry, just. You see this all right? So a little bit about the company. So I founded about 2 years ago. I actually spotted this disruption and made a posting saying LLMs are going to basically impact the brand decisions of 3 billion people within 3 years. And what was funny about that is people thought I was a little bit nuts. And actually, it's happening faster than that with ChatGPT, AI mode in Gemini. And then, in fact, last month, basically, Wall Street Journal came out and said marketers are trying to just scramble to keep up to this disruption. Rosemary talked about how fast it's moving. I want to talk a little bit about how broad it's going to be. And what's going to happen in a couple years is LLMs are going to touch billions of people multiple times a day through lots of different modalities. And right now, the conversation is really around AI search. People are going to ChatGPT to discover about brands and things like that. But it's going to get a lot more complex because people are starting to use assistants. I talk to ChatGPT every day, and I get responses and things like that. And then lastly, we're going to move into the era of agents, where there's going to be thousands of agents executing on behalf of customers, making decisions and things like that. So now, as a marketer, you actually have an entirely new customer. Rosemary said that we need to market to LLMs, which is totally right. And we're going to have to market to agents in the future. So marketers have this entirely new challenge to basically mitigate. Any questions on all that? Okay. At Revere, we're very focused on helping brands understand how they're represented on platforms like ChatGPT or Claude or AI mode on Google. And one of the things that several things make this very hard. One is for 25 years, brands had to deal with one platform, Google. Now it's several platforms, and it's going to be thousands of agents. Second is Google is pretty deterministic, pretty static answers, not the way with LLMs. They change every time. Third is Google is about simple queries. People have personalized conversations through the entire buying journey through different modalities with LLMs and AI based platforms. So as a marketer, you got to understand that across all those different channels. There's no longer blue links, there's full answers, and that's actually giving rise to the clickless search where people get the full answer within the platform. And the last thing is it's, basically these LLMs are nearly black box. There aren't a lot of products and tools out there to allow brands to understand how how LLMs represent them. So we believe at Revere, brands need to understand several things about how they're appearing in LLMs. How are they represented? Are they in the consideration set? How do the LLMs report how a brand does around specific attributes, purchase criteria, things like that? How do you compare to competitors? What sources are utilized? Because they utilize some different sources. And then basically at the heart of it, how do they form their representations and how do you improve it? And so at Revere, we have a product called Brand Lumineer, which does that, where we use multi-prompting analysis and synthesis to really help a brand understand how they appear on any LLM and what is the path to optimize that. Rosemary's been a terrific partner as we've served many clients together around this whole space. It is, it is a new time for marketers, Paul, as you know that. It's just, and you predicted it with the SEO bloodbath. Well, it's that and more some.
Fantastic, Mike.
Any questions on that?
Mike, what's the number one thing that you find yourself recommending to marketers that they aren't doing?
Well, so one is restructuring their content on their own websites is number one. And the way you structure content really, really matters. Rosemary said, answer the questions that people are asking. That's spot on. The second thing is really understand what are the most authoritative sources that are utilized by the LLMs. And it's a different set. One of the things we see repeatedly is Wikipedia. So do you have a Wikipedia page, right? The third thing I'll recommend is that you actually need to move beyond sort of content and content structure, content topics, because there's some things where you're going to need to change the performance of your brand because LLMs are very, very transparent. So for example, we have a company that has an app and the app has bad, basically battery drain. Well, there's not a lot of content updates you're going to make to overcome that. An LLM saying that, what you're going to have to do is change the product. So LLMs are going to be very, very transparent, and they're going to bring both great things about brands alive, negative things, and from a company standpoint, brands are going to need to deal with that.
That's great. We'll go to Rachel and then Joyce. Go ahead, Rachel.
Rachel?
Sorry, I've got so many questions. This is blowing my mind. So marketing to agents,
Yep.
how would one go about that? And can I, this is a separate question, but if I could just sneak it in there. Also, this will be a quicker answer. Are backlinks and directories and guest posts and all of that sort of, off-site SEO, is that still relevant or
Rachel,
less relevant?
I'm going to put some links in the chat for you that I think you'd find really useful. It's going to answer all those questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
On the agent side, that could be a 30-minute conversation as well. But what I'll say is agents actually work differently than LLMs. They actually use visual large language models. They are visual models. Secondly, they have specified workflows. There are a lot of companies that are creating partnerships with agents to be part of the workflow. A really good example of that is OpenAI's operator. If you ask OpenAI's operator to make a reservation at a restaurant, it will go to Yelp every time. So Yelp has a partnership with OpenAI to be part of that operator process. So when you actually optimize for agents, you have to think about content, but you also have to think about, okay, do I need to develop a business relationship with this agent? So it goes well beyond typical SEO, obviously.
Let's keep driving. We got 8 minutes and a ton of
Yep.
questions. So let's go Joyce, Karen, and Christina. Go ahead, Joyce.
Hi, very quick. How sustainable do you think those optimized result will last? So for example, if I do all the right things and make my website show up really well for a certain topic, how long do you think others will override my, and then do I have to keep updating my website to stay top of the list, or is just by luck?
Well, it's a very, very hard question to answer because what I don't know is how is OpenAI going to change LLM behavior over time and where this is all going. and no one knows that. And that's why you actually need to monitor to understand what are the differences over time and make adjustments.
Okay, let's go to Karen and Christina and then Lucinda. Go ahead, Karen.
Awesome. I really want to think about what the metric is that we're looking for. And the reason I ask this is kind of what I'm hearing from the different groups. So Rosemary showed, these vanity metrics we've used in the past of impressions, and click-through rates as a measure are no longer really showing us what our website can do, or they're showing that what it's not going to work. And then we saw the example of traffic from ChatGPT did show higher conversions. So what is so that's a different metric that's being applied to the website instead of visitors looking at conversions. And then what I'm hearing from Mike is that you've got to have these metrics around how engaged and how kind of what your brand visibility is to these LLMs. So what metric are we looking at these days?
It is shifting with these LLMs coming to the equation. Our view at Revere is you need to attach it to basically metrics that are connected to the way your brand is represented. So actually, one of the things that we do in our product is we actually have a metric called the Revere Brand Index Score, which is really NPS for LLMs. So the LLM's propensity to recommend your brand or product. And there's two components of that is reach. So is the brand showing up in the consideration set related to specific categories? And then we actually even measure sentiment. And we actually ask the LLMs a series of questions and measure sentiment of how the brand is described. And one of the things that's super interesting is all the LLMs have vastly different sentiment. So GPT-4o offline is happy-go-lucky. Gemini is more neutral. Online actually can be very critical of brands. So we actually focus really on sort of these metrics that quantify how you're represented, both through sentiment and reach.
Great. Go ahead, Christina and Lucinda.
Thank you, Paul. I read a recent article where they looked at the sources. They did, millions of searches and looked at queries, and looked at the results and found that the top two sources were Reddit and Wikipedia.
Yes.
What is your advice, Mike, for brands, given that information with respect to changing the way they show up in those LLMs? And what is number 3, 4, and 5 on that list?
Yeah, so I would say 3, 4, and 5 on that list is very, very industry dependent. And what we're finding is for each industry or category, there are a set of sources that are highly utilized. IT World, Gartner, right? In the automobile industry, it's Edmunds and KBB and things like that. But a lot of postings that do these rankings and stuff like that are utilized very, very heavily by the LLMs. The second thing that's important is to actually keep track of the licensing deals going on. So why does Google now always go to Reddit? Because guess what? There's a licensing deal. In terms of managing Reddit, there are ways to actually insert yourself for the marketer or brand, insert yourself in the Reddit conversations. That's got to be done, well and with high visibility and high authenticity. But there are ways to actually manage your presence in Reddit as a participant.
I guess that's my question. Is that your advice, that they actively manage their view in Reddit and manage their Wikipedia page? Is that
yes
advice?
Yes.
And then the same thing for these other sources, like if you're an auto at Edmondson or Kelly Blue Book?
Exactly. Yep.
Great. Lucinda, take us home. Last question.
All righty. All right. So here I am, on my couch, not able to run a marathon. And I have to get from couch to marathon. for my AI, for my website. How do I, like, what do you take people through to get them to be able to be high performing? Can you just give an example of that, both Mike and Rosemary? And if Alden can talk about what he's done as well, that'll be good. But go ahead.
So from my standpoint, what we first do is we actually measure the brand on the LLMs and show the brands where they need to improve. And different brands have different issues. Some have reach issues that are not showing up in the LLMs at all. Other ones have sentiment issues where really negative messages are coming through. And that actually measurement actually provides the ability to do content identification and content updates to your website, a lot of what Rosemary does, to actually start to improve that representation. Rosemary, anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole, Lucinda, really, all these websites have to rewrite and upscale their content. And
So when you say that, what do you mean? Like what, like how would you?
Okay, so I'll give you an example of this one that I'm just working on. So
Right.
I'm looking at their blog post, and the first sentence on the page, the very first sentence was 37 words long. Do you think anybody can understand that? Do you think an LLM can understand that? And then I found that 35 sentences in this blog post were excessively long, making the whole blog post hard to read. If it's hard to read for a human, it's hard to read for an LLM. So companies have to upscale their content. And one of the cool things that we've done with Mike's product is we've taken Mike's product and we took all the data from there. We take a blog post and we put the whole thing into ChatGPT and we ask it to tell us what we need to optimize. And the latest thing I did, Mike, was I took a win-loss report from the company and I uploaded that so that when we're answering questions and changing this blog post, we are addressing the problems that the company has in closing deals. And we're doing that in the content.
That's great.
Well, Mike and Rosemary, fantastic presentation. I want to be sensitive to time, but really energetic discussion. We'll definitely want to have you guys come back. This is a very fluid area. We're going to be talking about this at our conference. We'll be talking about it more in learning labs. So thanks, everyone, and let's keep the learning going.